Maya had always been curious about her family's past. She grew up listening to her grandmother's stories about Montana, a place she had never visited. Her grandmother would often describe the mountains, the forests, and the old cabin her grandfather had built long ago. It was said that the cabin had been locked for 70 years. No one had entered it since her grandfather's time. Many people in the nearby town whispered about the cabin. Some said it was filled with old treasures, while others claimed it held secrets that no one could understand. One bright morning in early summer, Maya arrived in Montana. The air was fresh and cool, and the mountains seemed taller than she had imagined. The pine trees swayed gently, and the sunlight sparkled as it passed through the leaves. Maya carried a small backpack with essentials and the old map she had found in her grandmother's attic. The map was faded and torn in some places, but it clearly showed a path leading deep into the forest. Maya started her journey early, walking along a narrow dirt trail. Birds chirped around her, and small animals scurried between the bushes. She could hear the soft sound of a nearby stream flowing over rocks. The forest was quiet, yet full of life. Every step she took made her more excited. She had imagined this moment for years, and now it was real. After walking for an hour, Maya reached a fork in the trail. She studied the map carefully. One path led to a hill covered with wildflowers, while the other went deeper into the dense forest. The map indicated that the cabin was hidden in the trees, so she chose the path into the forest. The trees grew taller, and the sunlight became softer as it filtered through the thick leaves. Maya felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. She walked for another 2 hours, pushing aside branches and stepping over roots. Suddenly, she noticed a clearing ahead. Her heart started to beat faster. There, in the middle of the clearing, stood the cabin. It was smaller than she had imagined, but still had a strong presence. The wooden walls were old and gray, and the roof was covered with moss. Windows were dusty, and the door had a thick layer of grime. Despite its age, the cabin looked as if it had been waiting for someone to open it. Maya approached the cabin slowly. She noticed an old keyhole in the center of the door. She reached into her backpack and took out a small, rusty key she had found in a drawer at her grandmother's house. The key had no markings, but it seemed old enough to belong to the cabin. She held her breath and inserted the key. It fit perfectly. With a gentle turn, the lock clicked. Maya felt a rush of excitement. She had opened the cabin after 70 years of silence. The door creaked as it slowly swung open. A warm, golden light from the morning sun spilled into the cabin, revealing shadows and shapes that had not been touched for decades. The air inside smelled of pine, old wood, and dust. Maya stepped inside carefully. Her footsteps echoed softly on the wooden floor. She could see old furniture, some covered in white sheets, and a few boxes stacked against the wall. The room felt frozen in time, as if her grandfather had just stepped out for a moment and would return any second. Maya walked to the center of the cabin and looked around. There were shelves filled with books, some of which were falling apart. A small table held a few papers, and a chair was tucked neatly under it. She ran her fingers over the rough surface of the wood and felt a connection to her grandfather. He had built this place with his own hands. She imagined him sitting in the chair, writing letters, reading, or planning his day. As she explored further, Maya noticed a faint outline of a door at the back of the cabin. It was almost hidden behind a bookshelf. Curious, she moved the bookshelf aside and gently pushed the door. It opened with a soft creak, revealing a small room. Inside, she found more boxes, some tied with ropes, and several old journals stacked neatly. Maya picked up one of the journals and carefully opened it. The pages were yellowed and fragile, but the handwriting was clear. It was her grandfather's. She began to read. The journal spoke of his dreams, the work he did to survive, and his love for his family. There were stories of challenges he faced, like harsh winters, forest fires, and long journeys into the mountains. Maya felt as if she were hearing her grandfather's voice, speaking to her across time. There were also hints of a treasure hidden in the cabin. The treasure was not only money or gold, but also something that would help the family in times of need. Maya's excitement grew with each page she turned. She carefully placed the journal back and looked around the room again. She realized the cabin was full of stories, secrets, and memories. Everything had been preserved for decades. Maya felt honored to be the one to discover them. She understood that the cabin had been waiting for someone who could appreciate its history and continue the legacy. She spent the afternoon exploring every corner of the cabin. There were old tools, photographs, and letters tied with ribbons. Each item told a story. She found a photograph of her grandfather as a young man, standing proudly in front of the cabin. She smiled at the picture, feeling a stronger connection to her roots. Outside, the wind blew softly through the trees, and sunlight created patterns on the wooden floor. Maya felt peaceful, yet eager to uncover more. As the sun began to set, Maya stepped outside the cabin for a moment. The forest glowed in the golden light. She took a deep breath and realized that this place was more than just an old cabin. It was a bridge between the past and the future. She promised herself that she would uncover every secret her grandfather had left behind and share them with her family. The discovery of the cabin was only the beginning of a journey that would change her life forever. With renewed energy, Maya returned inside the cabin. She lit a small lamp she had brought with her and sat on the floor, examining the boxes and journals again. She knew that tomorrow would bring more discoveries. For now, she allowed herself to imagine her grandfather's life, his dreams, and the hidden treasure waiting to be found. Maya felt a sense of belonging she had never felt before. She realized that the cabin was not just a building. It was a story, a memory, and a home waiting for her to bring it back to life. Maya carefully closed the cabin door for the night, leaving the key in a small hook by the entrance. She stepped outside, looking at the mountains bathed in the soft glow of sunset. She felt a strong connection to the past and a deep excitement for what the future held. The cabin had been locked for 70 years, but now, it had opened a new chapter, and Maya was ready to explore every page. The next morning, Maya woke up to the sound of birds singing outside the cabin. Sunlight filtered through the dusty windows, casting warm patterns on the wooden floor. She felt excited and full of energy. Yesterday's discovery had been just the beginning, and she could not wait to continue exploring. After a quick breakfast of bread and fruit she had brought with her, she returned to the cabin. She wanted to examine every corner and uncover all the secrets her grandfather had left behind. Her first thought was to explore the small room she had noticed yesterday. The door had been almost hidden behind an old bookshelf, but now it seemed like it was waiting for her attention. Maya carefully moved the shelf aside and pushed the door open. The hinges squeaked softly, revealing a dimly lit room. She stepped inside and looked around. The room was smaller than the main cabin, but it was filled with old boxes, trunks, and bundles of letters tied with ribbon. The smell of old paper and wood filled the air. Maya knelt beside one of the boxes and untied the rope holding it closed. Inside were stacks of papers, photographs, and a few small objects wrapped in cloth. She gently lifted a photograph and held it up to the sunlight. It was a picture of her grandfather as a young man, standing next to a horse. His eyes looked determined, and his smile was warm. Maya felt a sudden closeness to him. She realized that these items were more than just objects. They were pieces of her family's history, preserved for generations. She placed the photograph down and opened a bundle of letters tied with red ribbon. The letters were carefully written, each one filled with neat handwriting. Maya recognized her great-grandmother's name on the envelopes. She read the first letter, which spoke of love, hope, and dreams for the future. Her great-grandmother wrote about sending seeds and small gifts to her husband while he worked far away. Maya's heart swelled with emotion. These letters were more than words. They were a connection to the people who had built the life she now enjoyed. After reading the letters, Maya opened a few of the journals stacked neatly in the corner. They were her grandfather's journals, filled with stories of his life, his struggles, and his dreams. He had written about traveling through the mountains, surviving harsh winters, and finding ways to live off the land. Maya could see how much he cared for his family, and how much he had worked to provide for them. Each page was a lesson in determination, patience, and love. As she explored further, Maya noticed something unusual about one of the boxes. It was heavier than the others, and it had a small, carved pattern on the lid. She carefully lifted the lid and found a collection of old coins from different countries. There were also small gold rings and a few polished stones. Maya realized that these items were valuable, not only in money but also in history. Each coin and ring told a story of a different time, a different place, and a different person who had touched her grandfather's life. Her attention was drawn to a folded piece of paper tucked at the bottom of the box. She unfolded it carefully and discovered a small map. The map had markings that led to a location in the forest behind the cabin. Her grandfather had written a note on the edge. For the one who finds this, the journey is only beginning. Maya's curiosity grew stronger. She understood that the cabin was not only a place to preserve memories but also a guide to a hidden adventure. Maya spent the rest of the morning carefully examining the rest of the boxes and journals. She found tools her grandfather had used for woodworking, a few old photographs of family friends, and a bundle of seeds for plants that could grow in Montana's climate. Each item seemed to be chosen with care, each object holding a memory or a lesson. Maya felt as though her grandfather had planned this discovery for someone who would truly appreciate it. Around noon, she took a break and stepped outside. The forest was calm and peaceful. Sunlight streamed through the tall pine trees, and she could hear the gentle rustling of leaves. A deer passed by, pausing to look at her before disappearing into the trees. Maya smiled, feeling a sense of connection not only to her grandfather but also to the land around the cabin. She realized that this place had been waiting for someone who would understand its importance and care for it. Returning inside, Maya noticed a small desk in the corner of the room that she had not examined closely before. On the desk was a locked drawer. She searched the desk and found a small key attached to a string around her neck. It fit perfectly into the drawer. With a soft click, it opened. Inside were more letters and a tiny notebook. The notebook contained instructions her grandfather had written for maintaining the cabin, planting the seeds, and caring for the forest. Maya realized that her grandfather had not only built the cabin but had also left guidance for anyone who would take responsibility for it. She spent hours reading through the instructions. They were detailed and thoughtful, showing how much her grandfather had cared for the land and the family. Maya felt a deep respect for him. She understood that the real treasure of the cabin was not gold or jewelry, but the knowledge, love, and wisdom he had left behind. The journals, letters, and maps were his way of sharing his life with future generations. As the afternoon passed, Maya continued exploring the hidden room. She found more photographs of her grandfather with his friends and neighbors. Some pictures showed celebrations, others showed simple daily life. Each photograph was a story frozen in time. Maya arranged them carefully, imagining how her grandfather had lived and what he had experienced. She felt a growing sense of responsibility to preserve these memories. Maya realized that the cabin had been more than a home for her grandfather. It had been a place of learning, planning, and dreaming. Every item in the cabin had a purpose. Every letter, journal, and photograph was a lesson in patience, courage, and family. Maya felt proud to be part of this story. She knew that unlocking the cabin had opened a door not only to her grandfather's past but also to her own future. By the time the sun began to set, Maya had explored nearly everything in the hidden room. She carefully placed the items back in their original spots, making sure they were safe and protected. She felt a sense of accomplishment and excitement for what she would discover next. The map she had found promised another adventure in the forest, and she was eager to follow it. Before leaving the cabin for the night, Maya sat on the floor, looking around the hidden room one last time. The walls, the boxes, and the journals seemed to glow in the soft light of the lamp she had brought. She realized that this cabin, locked for 70 years, had preserved not just objects but the heart and spirit of her grandfather. She felt honored to be the one to discover it and promised herself to continue exploring with care and respect. Maya stepped outside as the stars began to appear in the night sky. The forest was quiet and peaceful. She felt a sense of connection to her grandfather, to the cabin, and to the land. The hidden room had revealed so much, but she knew there were still more secrets waiting to be found. She could feel it in the air, in the trees, and in the warm breeze that brushed her face. This was just the beginning of her journey. With determination and excitement, Maya returned to the small tent she had set up near the cabin. She knew that tomorrow she would follow the map and uncover the next part of her grandfather's story. For now, she let herself rest, feeling grateful for the hidden room, the journals, and the treasures she had discovered. The cabin, once silent for 70 years, was alive with stories again, and Maya was ready to bring those stories to light. The next morning, Maya woke up before sunrise. The air was cool, crisp, and smelled of pine. Birds chirped softly in the distance, and the first light of the day painted the mountains in soft shades of gold and pink. She felt a deep sense of excitement because today she would follow the map she had found in the hidden room. The map hinted at something important her grandfather had left behind, and Maya was determined to find it. After a quick breakfast, she packed her backpack with essentials: water, a notebook, a small flashlight, and the journal she had discovered in the cabin. She carefully folded the map and placed it in her pocket. Stepping outside, she took a deep breath and looked at the forest. The trees were tall and thick, casting long shadows on the ground. The path indicated on the map was not clear, but Maya could follow the landmarks her grandfather had drawn. Maya entered the forest, moving carefully over roots and rocks. The trail was narrow, and she often had to push aside branches to continue. Her heart pounded with excitement. The map led her past a small stream where she stopped briefly to drink water and rest. She remembered a note her grandfather had written in the journal: "The journey is as important as the destination." Maya smiled, understanding that discovering the cabin and now following the map were part of a larger story. After walking for about an hour, she reached a small clearing. The ground was covered with soft moss, and sunlight filtered through the trees, creating sparkling patterns. In the center of the clearing, she noticed a stone marker half buried in the ground. She bent down and examined it. It was engraved with symbols that matched those on the map. Maya carefully sketched the symbols in her notebook, making sure she understood their meaning. They seemed to point toward another direction in the forest, deeper into the mountains. Following the symbols, Maya continued her journey. The forest became denser, and the sound of birds and animals grew quieter. She could hear the occasional rustle of leaves, and the wind whispered through the tall pines. It felt peaceful, yet mysterious. She paused to look at the map and noticed that the next marker was near a large rock shaped like an arch. Excited, she pushed forward, scanning the forest floor for signs of the landmark. After some time, Maya finally spotted the rock arch. It was larger than she had imagined, and sunlight shone through the gap in the middle. The map indicated that something important was hidden nearby. She walked carefully around the arch, inspecting the area. Her eyes fell on a patch of grass that looked different from the rest. It was slightly darker, and the soil seemed disturbed. Maya knelt down and brushed away the leaves. Beneath the soil, she found a small, wooden box with intricate carvings. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she lifted the box. It was light, but felt significant. She placed it on a flat rock and carefully opened it. Inside were several old coins, a few rings, and a bundle of letters tied with a red ribbon. She recognized the letters immediately. They were the ones she had seen in the cabin, written by her great-grandmother. Maya carefully read one of the letters. It spoke about hope, family, and the importance of passing knowledge from one generation to another. She realized that this treasure was not just about wealth, but about the love and guidance her grandfather had left for the future. She examined the coins and rings. Each coin was from a different country, and each ring was simple yet elegant. Maya understood that her grandfather had collected these items over time, perhaps as reminders of his travels or as gifts for the family. She carefully placed everything back in the box and tied it securely. This treasure was precious, not just in value but in meaning. It represented her family's history and her grandfather's care for the future. While examining the box, Maya noticed a small folded piece of paper tucked at the bottom. She unfolded it and found another map, smaller than the first. It marked another location in the forest, near a stream she had passed earlier. Her grandfather's handwriting was neat and precise. It read, "For the one who seeks wisdom, follow the water. The land will guide you." Maya smiled. She felt as if her grandfather were guiding her personally, even though he had been gone for so many years. Maya decided to follow the new map. She retraced her steps to the stream and looked for landmarks mentioned in the drawing. The map led her along the bank, past small waterfalls and smooth stones. The forest was alive with sounds of flowing water, birds singing, and leaves rustling. Maya felt a sense of peace. The journey was challenging, but it was also beautiful. Every step seemed to connect her more deeply to the land her grandfather had loved. After walking for some time, Maya reached a small clearing by the stream. The map indicated that the next clue was hidden near a large tree with twisted roots. She approached the tree carefully and examined the roots. She noticed a small hollow beneath them. Inside was a leather pouch, worn with age but still intact. She opened it and found a small notebook and a few seeds wrapped in cloth. The notebook contained her grandfather's notes about planting and growing plants in the Montana climate. The seeds were for trees and flowers that could thrive in the mountains. Maya realized that her grandfather had prepared this treasure not for himself, but for those who would come after him. The coins, letters, and seeds were all gifts of knowledge, hope, and care. She felt a deep connection to him, and understood that the cabin and the forest were full of lessons waiting to be discovered. The real treasure was not gold or jewelry but the wisdom, love, and thoughtfulness her grandfather had left behind. She spent the afternoon near the stream, planting a few of the seeds in the soil and making notes about where to plant the rest. Maya felt proud and happy. She realized that her grandfather's legacy was not just in the items he had left, but also in the way he had cared for the land and the family. She felt honored to be the one to continue his work and preserve his memory. As the sun began to set, Maya carefully packed the pouch, notebook, and coins back into her backpack. She looked around the clearing, taking in the beauty of the forest. The stream sparkled in the golden light, and the trees swayed gently in the evening breeze. Maya knew that the journey was far from over. There were still more clues and treasures waiting to be discovered, and she could feel that each step would bring her closer to understanding her grandfather's life and legacy. Before returning to the cabin, Maya sat quietly by the stream for a few moments. She reflected on what she had discovered. The hidden room in the cabin, the letters, journals, coins, and seeds, all of it told a story of love, care, and wisdom. Maya realized that the true treasure was the connection to her family and the lessons that would guide her in life. She felt grateful, inspired, and ready for the next part of her journey. With the first part of the treasure safely secured in her backpack, Maya began walking back to the cabin. The forest was quiet and peaceful, and the air was filled with the scent of pine and earth. She knew that tomorrow she would follow the next part of the map, uncovering more secrets and learning even more about her grandfather. The adventure had only begun, and Maya felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. The next morning, Maya woke up with the first rays of sunlight spilling through the cabin windows. The forest outside was alive with the soft sounds of birds, rustling leaves, and the distant murmur of a stream. She felt a renewed sense of excitement because today, she would follow the second map her grandfather had left behind. The first part of her journey had already revealed treasures, knowledge, and letters filled with love, but she could feel that the most important discoveries were yet to come. After a quick breakfast, Maya packed her backpack with water, the journal she had found, a small flashlight, a notebook, and the pouch with coins, seeds, and letters. She carefully folded the second map and studied it before stepping into the forest. The path was narrow and uneven, with roots and rocks scattered across it. The morning air was crisp, and sunlight filtered through the tall pine trees, creating moving patterns on the forest floor. Maya felt both calm and eager as she began her walk. The map led her to a stream she had noticed the day before. Following the directions carefully, she walked along the bank, listening to the gentle flow of water. The map showed a series of landmarks that would guide her deeper into the forest: a large fallen tree, a rock shaped like a triangle, and a cluster of tall pines. Maya scanned the surroundings, identifying each feature as she moved forward. Her grandfather's notes in the journals had mentioned these landmarks, and she felt a growing connection to him as she followed his directions. After walking for about an hour, Maya reached the fallen tree. Its massive trunk lay across the forest floor, moss covering its surface. She carefully climbed over it and continued along the path indicated by the map. Soon she spotted the triangular rock formation. It was unusual and striking, and sunlight glinted off the edges of the rocks. The map suggested that the next clue would be nearby. Maya examined the ground carefully, looking for anything that seemed out of place. She noticed a patch of earth near the rock that appeared softer than the surrounding soil. Kneeling down, she brushed away leaves and twigs, revealing a small metal box. Her hands trembled with excitement as she carefully opened it. Inside, she found several old coins, a few polished stones, and a folded piece of paper. The paper was another note from her grandfather, written in neat handwriting. It read, "For the one who seeks wisdom, the treasure is more than gold. Look around you and understand the land." Maya understood that her grandfather's treasures were not just objects but lessons. He had carefully hidden these items to teach whoever found them about patience, observation, and care. She placed the items back in the box and tied it securely. She decided to leave it in its place for now because she wanted to explore further and find all the clues before taking anything back to the cabin. The map guided her toward a part of the forest she had not yet seen. The trees grew closer together, and sunlight barely reached the ground. The forest was quiet, with only the sound of her footsteps and the soft rustle of leaves. Maya noticed small signs of wildlife, animal tracks in the mud, the remains of pine cones gnawed by squirrels, and the occasional bird perched on a branch. Each detail made her feel more connected to the forest and to her grandfather, who had spent so much time here. After walking for another hour, Maya reached a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a large tree with twisted roots that seemed to reach in every direction. The map indicated that something important was hidden here. Maya approached the tree carefully, examining the roots. She noticed a small hollow at the base of the tree. Kneeling down, she reached inside and found a leather pouch. The pouch was worn but intact, tied with a simple string. She opened the pouch carefully. Inside were a small notebook and several seeds wrapped in cloth. The notebook contained instructions her grandfather had written about planting and caring for plants in Montana's climate. He had carefully detailed the best locations to plant different types of trees and flowers, how to care for them during harsh winters, and how to ensure they thrived in the forest. Maya realized that her grandfather had not only cared for his family, but also for the land itself. Maya spent the next few hours planting some of the seeds near the tree. She followed her grandfather's instructions carefully, placing each seed in the soil, covering it gently, and patting the ground to protect it. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction as she worked. She knew that these plants would grow and flourish, just as her grandfather had hoped. She imagined the forest filled with flowers, trees, and wildlife, all thriving because someone cared enough to follow his guidance. As she worked, Maya noticed a small stream flowing nearby. The water was clear and cool, and it reflected the sunlight in sparkling patterns. She knelt beside the stream, drinking some water and enjoying the peaceful surroundings. The forest felt alive and full of energy. She realized that her grandfather had chosen this location carefully, not only for the cabin but for the treasures and lessons hidden in the forest. Every detail was meaningful, from the placement of the boxes to the plants and trees he had chosen. After planting the seeds and examining the notebook, Maya explored the area around the large tree. She discovered more small markings on stones, indicating that there were additional hidden items. Carefully following the symbols, she found a tiny wooden box buried beneath a pile of leaves. Inside were several old photographs of her grandfather with his friends and family. The photos showed celebrations, work in the fields, and moments of quiet reflection. Each photo told a story, and Maya felt as if she were stepping into her grandfather's life. By late afternoon, Maya had discovered all the items indicated on the second map. She carefully packed everything in her backpack, making sure the seeds and photographs were safe. She paused to look at the forest around her, feeling a strong sense of connection to her grandfather and the land. She realized that the real treasures were not the coins, photographs, or seeds alone, but the lessons of care, patience, and observation that her grandfather had left behind. As the sun began to set, Maya made her way back to the cabin. The forest glowed in the warm light, and she felt a sense of peace and accomplishment. She knew that tomorrow would bring the final discoveries, as the maps and journals hinted at even more secrets waiting to be uncovered. Maya felt grateful for the journey and proud of the work she had done to follow her grandfather's guidance and preserve his legacy. When she reached the cabin, Maya carefully placed the items she had found in a safe corner of the hidden room. She lit a small lamp and spent some time reviewing the journals, maps, and notes again. She realized that the cabin, the forest, and the treasures were all part of a story her grandfather had prepared for her. Every step, every clue, and every item was a way to connect her to the past while guiding her toward the future. As night fell, Maya stepped outside the cabin and looked at the stars above. The mountains and trees were bathed in soft silver light. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for her grandfather and the journey she had undertaken. The secrets of the forest had been revealed, but she knew that the adventure was not yet complete. The cabin and its hidden treasures still held more lessons, more stories, and more discoveries waiting for her. Maya returned to her small tent near the cabin, feeling tired but happy. She knew that the next day would bring the final part of her journey, where she would uncover the greatest secret her grandfather had left behind. For now, she allowed herself to rest, feeling inspired by the care, wisdom, and love that had guided her every step. The forest was quiet as she drifted to sleep, the gentle sounds of the night surrounding her. Maya knew that the cabin, the hidden room, and the forest were not only places of discovery but also reminders of the strength, patience, and love that had shaped her family. She felt ready for whatever lay ahead, knowing that each step of her journey brought the morning sun rose gently over the Montana mountains, filling the sky with soft shades of gold and pink. Maya woke up with excitement in her heart. Today, she would finish her journey, putting together all the discoveries she had made in the cabin and the forest. The last few days had been full of adventure, learning, and connection to her grandfather's past. She felt proud and grateful to be part of his story. Maya packed her backpack with the journals, letters, coins, and seeds she had discovered so far. She also brought the small tools and notebooks her grandfather had hidden near the stream in the forest. She wanted to organize everything in the cabin and start creating a space that reflected the care and love her grandfather had put into it. Before stepping outside, she took a deep breath of the fresh mountain air and felt a sense of determination. She began by entering the hidden room in the cabin. The sunlight filtered through the dusty windows, illuminating the stacks of journals, boxes, and letters. Maya carefully placed each item on a table, organizing them by type. Letters in one pile, journals in another, coins and rings in a small box, and photographs arranged neatly. She looked around the room and realized how much history was stored here. Every object told a story, every page held wisdom, and every photograph carried emotion. Next, Maya turned her attention to the tools and seeds she had collected. She decided to plant the seeds near the cabin to create a small garden. She cleared a patch of soil in front of the cabin and began planting. She followed her grandfather's instructions carefully, placing each seed in the right spot, covering it with soil, and patting it gently. As she worked, she imagined the forest growing fuller and more vibrant with every tree and flower her grandfather had thought about. The garden would not only be beautiful but also a living reminder of his care for the land. While planting, Maya noticed the coins and rings she had found along the forest paths. She placed them in a small wooden box she had cleaned and polished. These treasures were valuable, but Maya understood that their true importance lay in their connection to her grandfather and the family history they represented. She placed the box in the hidden room, where it could be safely stored and appreciated. Each item was a part of the story that had been waiting 70 years to be discovered. After planting the seeds and organizing the treasures, Maya turned her attention to the journals and letters. She spent hours reading and rereading them, taking careful notes. Her grandfather's handwriting revealed his thoughts, his hopes, and his love for the family. Some letters contained advice for life, while others told stories of daily challenges and triumphs. Maya realized that these journals were a guide, teaching her patience, kindness, and respect for both people and nature. By afternoon, the cabin was starting to feel alive again. The hidden room had been organized, the garden outside the cabin was full of newly planted seeds, and the items her grandfather had left were placed carefully for safekeeping. Maya decided to create a small display of photographs in the main room. She hung pictures of her grandfather, her great-grandmother, and old family friends on the walls. Each photograph brought a sense of warmth and connection. She wanted anyone who entered the cabin to feel the history and love that filled the space. Maya then turned her attention to the furniture and general upkeep of the cabin. She dusted the chairs, polished the table, and opened the windows to let in fresh air. The cabin, which had been silent for 70 years, now felt full of life and energy. The walls, once dull and forgotten, now held the warmth of memories and the excitement of new beginnings. Maya smiled, knowing that her grandfather would have been proud of how carefully she had preserved everything. As the sun began to lower in the sky, Maya decided to take a walk around the property. She followed the path she had taken during the past few days, checking the places where she had found coins, letters, and seeds. She planted a few additional seeds near the stream and marked spots where the forest could grow more flowers. She felt a deep connection to her grandfather and the land. Each step she took reminded her of the care and planning he had put into every detail of the cabin and forest. Returning to the cabin as the sky turned shades of orange and pink, Maya felt satisfied and peaceful. She lit a small lamp in the main room and sat near the window, reflecting on the past few days. The cabin was no longer just a building, it had become a living memory of her grandfather's life, full of lessons, treasures, and love. She realized that her work was not only about discovering the past but also about creating a future where the cabin and its stories could continue to inspire. Maya thought about her family back home. She wanted to share the letters, journals, and photographs with them, so they could understand their history and feel connected to their roots. She also knew that some of the treasures, like the seeds and tools, could continue to be used to care for the land and forest. The cabin had become a place of learning, growth, and family, exactly as her grandfather had intended. As night fell, Maya sat outside the cabin, looking at the stars above the mountains. The air was cool and calm, and the forest was quiet except for the gentle sounds of leaves rustling and a distant owl calling. She felt a deep sense of gratitude and happiness. The journey of discovery had taught her patience, respect, and love for both family and nature. The cabin, which had been locked for 70 years, was now alive with memories, stories, and new beginnings. Before going to sleep, Maya made a plan for the future. She decided to visit the cabin every summer, continuing her grandfather's work and keeping the forest and garden thriving. She would also share the letters, journals, and stories with her family, so that future generations could learn from the wisdom and care her grandfather had left behind. Maya realized that the cabin was not just her discovery, it was a gift meant to be preserved and shared for years to come. With the cabin now organized, the forest cared for, and the treasures safely stored, Maya finally went to bed feeling peaceful and accomplished. She had uncovered the secrets of the cabin and the forest, learned the lessons hidden in her grandfather's journals, and created a new beginning for the family legacy. The adventure had been challenging, but it had filled her heart with love, pride, and a sense of purpose. As she drifted to sleep, Maya thought about the future. She imagined children running through the forest, discovering the hidden treasures, and learning about their family history just as she had. She imagined the garden blooming with trees and flowers, a living reminder of her grandfather's care and wisdom. The cabin, once locked and silent, would continue to be a place of discovery, learning, and love for generations to come. Maya smiled as she closed her eyes, knowing that she had completed the journey her grandfather had started so many years ago. The cabin, the forest, and the treasures were no longer forgotten. They had been rediscovered, preserved, and brought back to life. Maya felt a sense of connection, not only to her grandfather but to her family and the land itself. She had unlocked more than a door, she had unlocked a story, a legacy, and a future filled with hope and love.